Right, good morning all, and great to be here with you in Sydney, and very much excited to share about Powerlink's market modelling capability and what we're doing here at the transmission network up in Queensland. But before I start, look, see the fancy socks? There's the Energy Exemplar merch in use. So, yes. So they're very comfortable socks, so yeah, I recommend them to you all. Now, first, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land in which we gather here today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And today we're on Gadigal land, and so I'd like to pay my respects to them. And Powerlink has a very important relationship with traditional owners with over 15,000 kilometres of transmission network. So first, who is Powerlink? So Powerlink's a government-owned corporation, so we're owned by Queenslanders. We build, own and operate the transmission network in Queensland, and we have about 5 million customers. And we've got the network, it goes all the way from the Gold Coast up to Cairns. It's about 1,700 kilometres. So Powerlink, so our purpose is to connect Queenslanders to a world-class energy future. And we've got 4 strategic priorities. So guide the market, the right grid for tomorrow, driving value for Queenslanders and unleashing our potential. And the market modelling that I'll be talking about today really is super important for all 4 of those strategic priorities. Now, planning on the transmission network has never been so hard. So historically, we were very much fixated on the network for maximum demand. But now we've got to worry about maximum demand, we've got to think about minimum demand and the challenges that brings to the network. Weather dependency, so that's both on the demand side, so demand is very much changing depending on what's happening with the weather, but now also with the generation side. So we've got that weather dependency and that balance to understand. Also got the challenges of system security, so the system strength and inertia that we took for granted in the past is no longer guaranteed, so how do we plan for that? And if it doesn't all go to plan, how do we make sure that we can restart the network? And I'm thinking of Spain last year. And today I'll focus on the maximum demand, the minimum demand, and also that weather dependency. So important to the market modelling that we do. So first, looking at maximum demand. So the blue line, that's Powerlink's forecast of max demand. The purple line is the AEMO, the Australian Energy Market Operator's view. So that's 2 independent forecasts. You can see that they're very, very similar this year over the 10-year period. The year before, Powerlink's demand was a little bit higher, and that was when we had the hydrogen demand, but a number of the hydrogen projects have been deferred and cancelled, so it's bringing our demand down a bit. And AEMO, they had less electrification in their previous forecast, so they're lining up nicely. Both showing basically an increase in demand over the next 10 years, driven by population growth, economics, and electrification of industry. Because you can't have a conference without mentioning data centres. So there's actually no data centre load in our demand forecast there. Not seeing much activity. I think we had our first data centre application at the end of last year. A lot of them are looking at in other states and overseas, but certainly something that we're focusing on, and so there's potential upside in our demand forecast. Minimum demand. So you can see again, blue line for Powerlink, the purple for AEMO, both showing minimum demand trending downwards over the next 10 years. a lot of that's driven by rooftop solar. So when you see September, October, really nice sunny blue skies in Queensland, low demand, and actually then pushes the demand on the network down. What we're now seeing is electric vehicles and time of use tariffs are now starting to probably provide a little bit of upward pressure on that minimum demand. So it's not declining as much as it has in the last 10 years, but still declining a little bit. Now, why do I fixate about minimum demand? So you can see there's demand curves from before 2017. But you can see in 2017, there was a base load capacity. There was space to run the synchronous generators, about 4,500 megawatts. You move forward another 10 years, and you can see that duck curve really kicking in Queensland. And now there's only space for about 2,500 megawatts of coal generation. Now that's really, really important, because if you don't have that coal generation running on the network, then how do you make sure that you have the system services, like system strength and inertia, to keep the system stable? If you don't have enough coal plant running during the day, how will you manage to ramp up generation in the afternoon to meet your evening peak and keep the lights on? So super important to forecast that minimum demand, understanding that coal plant operation and making sure you can keep the lights on. So here's the generation that we had in Queensland back in 2016. Majority of it being coal, gas, with a little bit of pump hydro. Life back in 2016 was simple. And I remember talking to the EGM of operations at the time and telling them that operations have never had it so good. And 10 years on, things are a bit different. So now, this is the generation we've got across the transmission network. In the last 10 years, we've connected, or in the process of connecting, 50 renewable and storage projects, compared to the dozen that we had 10 years ago. That's 11 gigawatts of variable generation in an 11 gigawatt maximum demand network. So life is certainly getting a lot more complex. We've got great solar up in Queensland. They don't call us the Sunshine State for nothing. And solar's relatively cheap, but the downside is, particularly in Queensland, solar's more or less the same. So it's very much concentrated in the day when it's really sunny. In summer, you've got lots of solar. When it's a bit cloudy, and that's an example of in July, you can see that the minimum output day where the maximum you got out of your solar was 20%, and that's typically right across Queensland. Solar's really good though. From a cost perspective, capacity factor about 30%. And you can see that large-scale solar's coming into the market around about between $50 and $60 a megawatt hour. So one of the cheapest form of energy, as long as you use that energy when it's generated. And then you look on the averages. So wind in Queensland is complementary to the solar. So wind typically blowing at night, sun and sunshine during the day. And in Queensland, we're really lucky because we've actually got two geographical diverse wind sources. So we've actually got the wind from the equatorial, driven by the equatorial winds. That typically blows in winter and at night. And then we've actually got the southern winds as well from Antarctica, similar to the winds that you get in Victoria and New South Wales. So that geographical diversity is super valuable. But then the operational challenges of the network are not just in averages. So here's a chart showing a nice renewables day when it was windy and very sunny. So you can see that the demand or generation was very, very high. So great windy conditions there. But it creates operational challenges. So to transport the generation to the load at that time, or particularly when you've got that lots of renewable generation. So transmission 101, you want to put your generation as close to the load as you can. And when you're in Queensland, solar's very similar right across the state. So you want to put your solar close to where the load is. And that will help you avoid congestion on the transmission network. And stating the obvious, you need to put the wind generation where it's windy. So, but also not too far away from the transmission network as well. And there is the Duncan flout conditions, so dark and still. So this is an example in June last year where it wasn't very windy and it wasn't very sunny. And your 4-hour batteries will soon be depleted on a day like that. And that's why it's so important to have your gas generation provides your insurance to put energy into the network. Got a few batteries coming into the transmission network as well. So in the last 18 months, we've seen about 3 gigawatts of batteries connect into the network. And there's another 1.5 gigawatts actually being connected at the moment. Much more in the pipeline, but a significant increase in storage than what we had 18 months ago. So, with the changes we've seen in the last 10 years, we need a paradigm shift. So with that increased in weather-dependent generation, battery storage, and certainly more of them entering into the network, that paradigm shift in market modelling is so important. No longer do we care about max demand, but we care about max demand, minimum demand, and Duncan flout conditions. So we need intertemporal dynamic forecasts. So that's really making sure that on 30-minute resolution, can we keep the lights on 24/7, 365 days a year? And when you've done your market modelling and you think you've got it all solved, then you can overlay multiple weather years to make sure that it will work when it's not a very windy year or not a very sunny year as well. So it's not all about network augmentation for meeting demand growth, but it's also network augmentation to meet that demand growth, but also facilitating the right generation to get to market. And that's why the market modelling that we do is so important. So, but the modelling is a means to an end, and the end is good decision making. So Plexus, an excellent tool, and it's how we use Plexus to inform our decision making that's really important. Now, the process is not simple. It's not quick, but it's necessary to gain the understanding so that we can make informed, least regret investment decisions. Now at Powerlink, we take a very much a layered process, an iterative approach to our market modelling and to inform our decision making. It's not perfect, but it provides essential insight and kind of challenges our thinking to go into our decision making. And Bryce, one of the market modelling team, he'll be presenting this afternoon and he'll go through the process in more detail. So please stay tuned. So when I look around the world at the various energy systems, I do believe that Queensland really has a competitive advantage. So we've got a number of government-owned organisations which can allow us to do with that kind of coordination that's essential as we kind of navigate through the messy middle of the transition. We've got the youngest coal generation fleet in the national electricity market, so that gives us a bit of time to navigate through the transition. Got good wind, so it's 2 geographically diverse wind systems. Great solar, which is very, very important when you have a summer peaking network. So really is beneficial. And gas. So you always need the insurance when it's not windy and it's not sunny to keep the lights on. So the Queensland government developed the energy roadmap and published it in October last year. And it shows how we will leverage that competitive advantage for Queenslanders. And the Powerlink modelling team, so they did the market modelling that underpinned that roadmap. And they had very positive feedback on the insights that was provided by that market modelling, and the team did an excellent job. So when you think about the electricity network, I think of it in kind of three broad buckets of the bulk energy supply. So that's really the kind of the main demand that the majority of customers need, and that's kind of during kind of the middle of the day and overnight. There's the firming and the reliability part. So that's really to make sure that you can kind of trim the tiller a bit and balance that supply and demand, and making sure that you've always got that perfect match. And the power system security that we took for granted with the system strength and the inertia. We've got to make sure that we've got the right items to keep the system stable and running at 50 hertz here in Queensland. So I'll now take you on a journey looking at what we had in the past and what we may have into the future. So when you look at it 10 years ago, as I say, life was simple back then. Reasonably stable generation mix. We had some rooftop solar, but the majority was coal and a little bit of gas generation. And that same generation provided abundance of system security services, that inertia and system strength. In fact, 10 years ago, nobody mentioned system strength. You look at today, and the system is starting to look much more diverse. Much more rooftop solar, large-scale solar, and substantially decreased network demand during the day. Coal still providing the majority of the bulk energy, but it's competing now with the solar and wind generation. Gas is still essential, providing that firming and reliability, particularly in the evening. The Ivanhoe pump hydro, which wasn't doing an awful lot 10 years ago, is really kind of working now, charging with the solar during the day and then discharging in the evening peak. And we've got a few batteries, but not the same energy density as the pump hydros. Looking forward to 2035. Now, similar mix, but the volumes and dynamics are now starting to change. So demand has grown, so that population growth, electric vehicles, industrial electrification is driving up the electricity demand. Renewables, they're providing a far bigger mix, particularly during the day with that solar. But coal is still there, so an important part of the mix to make sure when it's not windy and solar. Starting to see much more storage on the network, and basically seeing that bulk movement of energy, and starting to see it over a couple of days rather than just from in the afternoon to evening, and gas. So it's now moving into predominantly an insurance to make sure that we keep the system reliable. And you've also got then things like synchronous condensers coming into the network to provide that system stability, because the synchronous generation is not running 24/7, 365 days a year. And then moving right forward into 2050, market is different again. So you can see the population growth, mass electrification, really driving up that energy requirement. But the energy demand is offset by the consumers. So consumers will be using their own batteries, their own solar, so that will be taking off the edge of some of the demand growth that we'll see. Wind and solar, so they're now doing the heavy lifting of that bulk energy supply during the day. Significant increase in storage, so that's when you start to get some of the pump hydros and long-term storage kicking in, with gas being the ultimate insurance and backstop when it's not windy and it's not sunny and you're putting electrons into the network. And reliability is not just about a maximum demand day, but it'll be about those Duncan-Flout conditions, which typically is about March, April time. In Queensland, demand is high, but it's actually less windy, and sometimes you can get a few rain events. Never go camping at Easter, by the way, in Queensland. So you have rain events and less solar. So that's when you'll start to see those Duncan-Flout events starting to kick in. So there's the Queensland Government's energy roadmap. Key highlights being the resetting of coal to make sure they're running them to the end of technical life. The importance of gas. So gas developers in the room, gas generation is super important. It is that insurance. And if you're developing a gas turbine, please install a clutch so that it can provide those system services. And also make sure that it has a restart capability. So should things go wrong, we'll be needing those gas turbines to restart the network. So super important, those of you developing gas. Batteries and pump hydro, so yep, storage. So as you get more intermittent generation, you need that more storage. The more storage you have, the less you have to rely on the gas. And obviously, an ongoing investment in the renewables, both solar and wind. So there were several factors and changes in the energy roadmap. It was different to the roadmap and plan that we developed about 5 years prior. So a lot had changed in that 5 years. In that 5-year period, we've seen transmission costs nearly double. We've seen the generation costs change, so I've seen a doubling of wind generation costs. Solar, relatively flat, so the price of solar is relatively flat. But the pump hydro costs have trebled. So over that 5-year period, as people start to work through those construction costs, they were seeing a trebling of costs. Generation, so coal-fired plants, so we could get them to run to their end of technical life with a change in government policy. And also there was a large pioneer Burdekin pump hydro. It was a 5 gigawatt, 24-hour pump hydro, but that project's now been stopped. And the load projections. So 5 years ago, it was all about hydrogen. And there was a massive demand from electrification and the hydrogen coming, but that's now tempered off in the last 5 years. And when you put that into your market modelling, you get a different outcome. So our latest network plan, based on those inputs, is that. So very much a very strong focus in central Queensland. So we've got a coal power station going to close in 2029, and then there's another one to shortly follow in 2031. So that's over 2,000 megawatts of coal plant coming out. So we're going to make sure that we've got augment the network to facilitate that. We've also got 4 synchronous condensers we're installing to make sure that we can maintain network stability in that area. We're then going to be doing targeted augmentations to get that new generation, like the wind and solar, into the load centres of central Queensland and down into southeast Queensland. And that's why the market modelling capability is so important, because we're going to be using that to guide those network augmentations to inform our network investments. When you look at the connections pipeline, so and you compare that against the energy roadmap, lots of wind, solar and storage, much more than what's required in our market modelling underneath the energy roadmap. Could do with a few more gas turbines. So as I said, so that's my call out to the developers there. It's very tough. because what you'll see is the gas turbines are really there for insurance. They're only running 1 or 2 weeks a year, so it's very hard to then make that investment to just run a gas turbine for 1 week or 2 weeks a year, but it's essential during those particular weeks. And it's always important to remember the market is always right. Don't fall in love with your market models. We had market models 5 years ago. The market moved, and then we've had to redo the modelling again. So don't fall in love with your market models. The market is always correct, and you've got to keep doing it periodically as things change. We've also here the AEMO's transition plan for system security, an important document for the national electricity market here in Australia, and it's flagging the major transition points in the NEM. And it's important to keep an eye on these major transition points and make sure that we're well prepared and advanced. Look at the green ones. The two green ones are in Queensland, so the market modelling team are doing a great job keeping us ahead of the game there. And hence Powerlink's focus on the market modelling to make informed decisions so we can lead the energy transition. Brings me to any questions? Yes, where did I get my socks? The socks were in the bag. It's a question out in the front here. Yeah, the microphone's coming around.
Thank you for that presentation. My question is referring to your 2050 slide, so if it helps, you can go to that one. I noticed that in 2050 you have several gigawatts of gas generation still being planned, given as your comments before that the utilization is going to be very low, potentially. Yeah, that seems like a very hard investment decision going forward. I guess I'm curious to know, how does Powerlink, I guess, trade that off against where long duration energy storage could be developing in the future, but also how do you also trade it off against the option of importing and exporting, greater amounts from other states within the NEM?
So what you see is you end up with the more storage you have, the less you have to run your gas turbines. So if you've got 10 gigawatt hours of storage, you need to run your gas turbines quite a lot. If you've got far more, and we've modelled 175 gigawatt hours. Currently we've got about 5 or 6, and we run 175. And on a worst weather year, so we looked at the last 10 years of weather and we picked a bad year, you can use all of 175 gigawatt hours 3 times over a 1 month period. So no matter how much storage you have, you will still need the gas turbines. We typically find that the megawatts doesn't change much. So that insurance you require is not about, it's about the megawatts. It's then how much do you then run them. And if you've got more storage, you have more geographical diversity, then you need to run them less. But what we'll find, or what I assume, is jurisdictions around the world, when the people who vote for them, the lights go out, they'll want to make sure that the lights stay on, and then people will want that insurance to make sure that on those days when it's a very bad wind year or a solar year and you can't get that. A case study which I'm kind of fascinated, and I think there's somebody in the crowd here from Ireland, but the Irish government saw that there was a need for gas as an insurance, and they actually got the transmission company in Ireland, and government bought 640 odd megawatts of gas turbines, and they're actually not operating the market, is my understanding. But when the market runs short and falls out of energy, these gas turbines will be brought in as insurance to keep the lights on. And that's maybe perhaps where we'll end up, is just becomes an insurance product that has to be bought outside the market. But no, excellent question, thank you.
Hi there.
Oh, excellent, sorry.
Agop Arpushan from Siemens Energy Grid Consulting. My question is about the three buckets that you showed around the energy multiply, the firming, and the power quality. What's your strategy at the moment in Queensland regarding the market simulation and also the power system side to satisfy these three buckets and how they interact with each other? Are you considering them separately, or are you considering how they would interact with each other?
Yeah, so the first two buckets, the kind of bulk energy and then the firming, we're using Plexos as the market modeling tool to do that. When you're looking at more the system services, we're using tools like PSCAD to do that analysis. Now, at the moment, the inertia system strength is provided by the synchronous machines that over time will be running less. And it's really about that in September, October time in Queensland, minimum demand, how much of those generators will be running at that particular time. The solution at the moment is synchronous condensers, and I think there's a presentation this afternoon talking about meeting the system strength needs, and that'll be synchronous condensers. We've also in Queensland used a gas turbine with a clutch, and we've paid one of the generators, and I think it was Siemens actually then did the conversion, so they can actually provide system strength even when it's not generating. We've got ourselves comfortable that we can use grid-forming batteries to provide the efficient system strength, but we haven't got comfort yet of using batteries to provide that base level to make sure that the system remains stable. But we're looking at some of those items with fault level. I think that's the last challenge with grid-forming batteries, making sure it provides the right positive and negative phase sequences required for our protection relays. But we're looking at a few elements there. Ideally, you'd want some sync-ons, some gas turbines with clutches, and some grid-forming batteries, and those three will meet your system requirements. And we're probably doing that in PSCAD modeling to confirm that. Thanks.
Okay, so my question is, it's really interesting to see so much rooftop solar in Australia. And now, I've seen many EV in Australia. And in Japan, we have a V2H, V2G system. Mm-hmm. And my question is, do you plan to use the EV as a battery for like V2G or V2H? I think the rooftop solar is so much already penetrated in houses in Australia, and I'm sure that many people, household people, are very interested to have a function for their EV to be able to charge electricity, their rooftop electricity at home and use it for night, and also maybe as a system operator, you can utilize this energy for supplying from this vehicle to the maybe city center, and they're paying some money to the homeowners. And I'd like to know about your planning.
Yeah, so lots of rooftop solar in Queensland. We've got about 7.5 gigawatts of rooftop solar now. I think every second household has got rooftop solar. And they're putting bigger systems on. I think the average size now is about 11 kilowatts. People moving to EVs, seen a big uptake in the last 12 months in home batteries as well. So all of that together, so how can we leverage that CR, the customer energy resources, to get the best outcome? I look forward to the next iteration of the market modeling tool that will help work that out for me. Excellent, thank you. And I think that's, I've told now, wrap it up. So the red flashing lights here. So thanks much. We'll see you all at morning tea.